what's up? This is Ron. Yo, this is Micah, and this is In the Middle. Well, we made it through one episode, so I guess it's time to go ahead and do another there, Mr. Ron. So
Yo,
what's going on there, sir?
hey man, we we've been seeing a lot going on the past week or so. A lot to talk about. We got the whole Bubba Wallace thing with NASCAR, having the noose in his garage, or supposed noose, as I understand. That may be a difference of opinion as to what that actually was. So there's that, and then we've got police reform is being looked at now in the Senate, as well as what else? They're talking about looking at exactly what is going on with Miss Taylor's situation out in Louisville, Kentucky. The officer was fired, but they still haven't brought any charges for that either. So yeah, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot we can dig into, a lot we can get into. I know we wanted to start off and make sure we started with this Bubba Wallace thing, man.
Yeah, that was very interesting. And just to be honest with people and be honest with people in our audience, anytime something like this goes down, I am more reserved than I get outraged, only because I only know what I'm told and I don't know what else may have happened further. And I say that because while it has been reported by groups like the ADL, SPLC, which are organizations that if you look into who actually funds them, is very interesting. And that's all I'm going to say about that particular aspect. But when they say things like hate crimes increased since whatever time it was, and basically it coincides with Trump's presidency, I wanted to make sure that if I call the buzzard in chief out, that I call him out using facts and call him out using actual real things. Because the one thing that he has won on is the aspect of fake news, and that people are just attacking him just to be attacking him because they don't like him, because they didn't take him seriously. And so when we do things that feed the narrative of what he professes, we then empower him and empower his base in order for them to win. And the more this stuff happens, the more his base will be like, okay, well, he's been doing all these good things for the country, because this is how they're going to see it. He's been doing all these good things for the country, even the very black people that are mad at him, and he improved their lives economically, and they go and do this whole lie on him. Just and let's be clear about the situation. In case you've been living on a rock and you don't watch sports media and you don't watch news media because you don't want to be tortured like I am or like Ron. We torture ourselves with this stuff so we can talk about it.
Right.
Bubba Wallace is not the person. First and foremost, Bubba Wallace is not the person who said he found the news. It turns out upon an investigation, it was someone on his team, the petty team, that went in there and found it. Yeah, he wasn't
even aware of it.
Yeah, he wasn't aware of it. But the reasonable and here's I didn't believe it all the way without all the facts and evidence. However, I understand those black people and those white people and everybody in between who jumped on the fact that this was a hate crime due to the circumstances it came about. So, yeah, logically speaking, you would think someone set him up with and tied the pull rope as a noose, specifically in his garage, because what has Bubba Wallace been doing the last 2 weeks during this time? Well, he's been now, also, full disclosure, I didn't know the brother was black. I didn't know. Say to me what you will, but when I first saw him and they said he was black, I was like, you sure? That's all. I'm just being honest.
Or just on namesake alone.
Yeah, I mean, Bubba, how many black guys real name is actually Bubba? Now, I've met some Bubbles. I've met plenty of Bubbles out black, but when I hear Bubba Wallace, I don't, in NASCAR.
Right.
I'm sorry. We're just being honest, okay? You can call me whatever the kind of name you want to call me. It don't hurt my feelings. You're probably dumb anyway. I'm just kidding. But So I didn't know Bubba Wallace was black. He's biracial, to be very specific. He's biracial,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll
Yeah.
get into that aspect of it after we break this down. Um, but when it was found by this team member, because of all the circumstances, because of the Confederate flag ban, because of all that, it made perfectly logical
Right,
sense.
it's
So I don't,
Alabama of
yeah.
all
So
places.
I don't fault anybody who felt that it felt some kind of way, but
Right.
that is a professional racing facility, which means they have a numerous amounts of cameras and numerous amounts of people and security to make sure that nobody can get in unless they know somebody on staff or they know somebody in security who can just let them in to make that
And
noose.
it's dialed down even more because of the virus. So
Yes,
you even got a smaller pool of people that you can microscope and see at what time, what they were doing, where they were. It's not this grand, amount of people like it normally would be for a NASCAR race in those pit lanes or in those garage areas.
yes.
So it's a very small number of people. It's not. It wouldn't take long to figure out who it may have been if in fact that's what's going on.
Exactly. And upon the FBI investigation, after all the NASCAR drivers and staff members did their demonstration, after they hashtag I stand with Bubba, after the
Right.
race and all the emotion, you come to find out it's that rope's been tied that way since October last year.
Wow. Wow. Well,
My people perish for lack of knowledge. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that to talk down to anybody who's black that logically believe, based on the circumstances, that would actually happen. Okay. But here's where I come in, and I don't know if you're different than me, but here's where I come in on this particular Bubba Wallace issue. I don't mind that people thought that way, but upon receiving new information, it's okay to say, you know what, I jumped the gun on it.
right.
I'm glad that wasn't the case.
Right.
I'm glad it wasn't the case. I was wrong. But instead
Right.
of just being honest and just saying, hey, you know what, I jumped the gun, I was wrong. It's no. Even though that may be the case, we still got this, and this been NASCAR stood up for the right thing, and they made headway, and we don't need that kind of racism in there. It's like, but it wasn't a hate crime. No. But all this
Well,
other good stuff,
yeah.
yeah, but it wasn't a hate crime. It's just say, keep it simple, because people are gonna make fun of him regardless. They call him. The rounds are going around now where he's called Bubba Smollett. Hilarious, but it's earned because while he was not the person who directly reported the news, because
Mm-hmm.
he was directly involved in how a lot of things are turned around, because he's the only considered black NASCAR racer in the
Right.
all of NASCAR, well, at least for the top shelf, which was we see at Talladega and Daytona. He's the figurehead. This is no different than, even though it's
He's
two
now
different
he's now the
situations,
face. He's
he's the
now the
face
face of
of
the
it.
movement, whether he
He's the
likes
face
it
of the
or
movement.
not.
Yes, and exactly. So he didn't make himself the face of that movement in the sense when it comes to the news. He did when he did the Black Lives Matter car. When him and his
Right.
sponsors got together and made the Black Lives Matter car, he became the face of that movement. Just like when Colin Kaepernick took his knee, he became the face of that particular movement. Were there other
Mm-hmm.
gentlemen in football who raised their black power fist and took knees? Yes. Do they still have jobs in the NFL? Yes. Who didn't get a
Yep.
job back in the NFL? Colin Kaepernick. Why?
Colin Kaepernick.
Because he was the face. Okay.
Right.
So we're being honest about it. Now, I don't like Colin Kaepernick personally. I understood what he was standing for, but that's another conversation for another time. Trust me, I got a whole 2 or 3 hours just on the perception and the mysticism behind one Mr. Colin Kaepernick. But that's another conversation for another time. So, what is my take on the Bubba Wallace thing? Is okay, you did it. My whole take, and coming to the end, just to wrap my part up, is sports media not apologizing for how sports media and media in general not apologizing for how it wasn't that they rushed to the fence, because it was logical. It was a logical thing to do. But just say,
Right.
hey, you know what? We jumped the gun. We thought this was a hate crime. We thought it was hate based on all the circumstances, based on the facts that we had at the time. And so we were wrong in that assumption. But now, we admit that we were wrong. Now you can say, okay, so what was the good that came out of our assumption? Here was the good. So we apologize for messing up. We
It
apologize
kind
for jumping the gun.
well,
But what was the net now? What was the net good? And let's go ahead and move forward together and focus on net good for NASCAR because there were a lot of good that came
right.
out of it. It was a lot
Because
of good that came out of it.
I do think whether it was whether it was previously there or not, it still has brought about a conversation that is necessary, especially for that if you want to put it that sport that's predominantly white, right? It's white male dominated, and it's got this backdrop that has a base of people who, are heritage more than hate and whatnot with the Confederate flag, and you see it there.
4 years of heritage.
It's almost right. It's almost like it was almost like a perfect marriage for NASCAR and its fans and that symbol. So now with everything that's swirling around with racism and in social injustice, criminal injustice and all of that, even though I think that the sports media in particular, and maybe even the mainstream media too, kind of got on this and kind of put their teeth into this so quickly, but I don't think you can blame them for the height of attention that's there for something like this.
Correct.
There's nothing else on TV. There's nothing else to really engage people on. You've got social issues out the yin yang going on, and NASCAR's never really had to face an issue like this. Not like the NBA, not like the NFL. Okay, so now they're in the fray, if you want to put it that way, of having to set their stance. They weren't forced to set their stance before, particularly NASCAR. Okay, they just didn't have to. There wasn't anybody like a Bubba Wallace taking a knee at the same time that Kaepernick was taking a knee. Now, if that kind of thing was happening, I'm sure this would have just come and gone. But it kind of is what it is, and I'm glad for it. I think it's the reckoning moment for NASCAR that was gonna come anyway. That's how I look at it.
Okay. Okay.
It was gonna have to come to pass at some point in time, and even if it was a premature thing as far as the circumstances, this is the landscape they're in now. They can't get away from it, especially if they want to further diversify their audience from what it currently might be right now. I don't know exactly what the fan base diversity is right now. Just from my own optics and my own opinion, I could say it's more predominantly white, but I've seen black NASCAR fans too.
Yes.
And they just might be a smaller number. But I mean, hell, I've even been to a few races. So
I have never been to a race. It was something that I don't want to sit in the hot sun just looking at cars going in a circle. It just I need.
I will tell you this. I won't do that either. I went to a night race. It was the Bank of America 500, and it was down in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it was actually pretty dope. I can't watch NASCAR on TV to save my life. I can't. It just watching the circle and just
So the in-person experience. If I'm going to do a NASCAR, I need to do more in-person experience, and I need to do it on TV. Okay.
There's a lot of interaction that you can get to the drivers. You can get down the pit road before the race starts. You can visit the pit teams. Obviously, they market this the right way with certain packages and ticket prices and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you get some pass for that. But just from where I was, we had gotten free tickets. It was through the Air Force's morale and welfare and recreation office. So we just had to get there and go. And it was awesome. It really was. Like I watched the whole thing. And I just enjoyed myself so much. There were people in the stands that were awesome. Yeah. So I would tell people to go. Now, mind you, this is what 2000 and I think it was 2009.
Okay.
That I went and saw this race. So you've got Confederate flags everywhere. You've got it on people's hats. It's on their bumpers, stickers. It's there. You can't get away from it. But I didn't feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. It's one of those things where we talk about different symbols and symbols of hatred and things like that. And I may have made a joke earlier about it being 4 years of heritage, but it really was less than 5 years of actual
Right.
heritage, and you can honor your folks who fought in that Civil War because I understand people want to make people well-meaning folks who don't want to admit to their history will tell you that it was more than just about slavery. But when you
Hmm.
I can actually show you documents by a white guy who loves freedom. He owns
Right.
the actual original documents uh, that will show you that during the secession papers, the people that was the representatives of the South that was seceding from the Union, slavery was mentioned a lot because it was their primary income and economy. Okay, so
Right.
it's okay that you want to push states' rights, but of course it was states' rights for them to also own slaves.
Exactly.
That was a part of it. And just like
There's no getting away from
and
it.
there were some northern states and people who don't want to know the history, there were some northern states who wanted to keep their slaves too because there was slaves in the north. But you say that to people who are all staunch, Abraham Lincoln was the greatest ever because he freed the black person. It's like there were no slaves in the north. Yes, there were. Okay,
Yes, there
okay.
there were.
But
Yeah.
as far as your point about black NASCAR fans, I've run into quite a few over this time that talked about how there's a large black population that really want to
Hmm.
be able to go to these NASCAR races, but like unlike you, who weren't really worried about the culture that was around with all the Confederate flags, others felt like they were excluded from that. And for me, it goes to that thing where people really want to focus on representation, and I don't watch NASCAR not because I'm not represented in it. I think the sport is boring. I don't watch golf, not because I don't respect Tiger Woods and his greatness and being the key combination, but because I think golf is boring. I don't watch baseball where there are numerous amount of brown faces that are mostly Hispanic, but numerous amount of brown faces because I
Yeah.
think baseball is boring. I watch football and I watch basketball primarily because I'm always seeing action. Someone asked me, why do I
Yeah.
watch hockey? Like, hockey doesn't appeal to me. So, now you're dealing with a person who's black who has sports that don't appeal to him. And the funny part
Hmm.
about these sports that don't appeal to him is that they're predominantly white sports. So
I mean, they are.
one can make the argument that the lack of representation also drives down interest, which is understandable. It's an understandable argument to make because NFL and NBA are predominantly black.
Right.
Like you talk about discrimination. I'm trying to figure out when's the last time a white guy can even get a starting job in the NBA that's not a European.
I mean, true.
When's the last time you gonna see a JJ Redick get a start? And JJ
I
Redick
mean,
can ball.
it's like, but see, most people don't know that hockey was started by a group of black men in 1855.
No, it wasn't. It
It,
wasn't started by that. That's
hold
Canada
hold
sports. That's
hold on, hold
Canada
on,
sport.
hold on. I'm gonna hook you up.
Okay.
Um, hold on, let me. But yes, it was a game started by African Americans that lived in the northern part of Canada, north of Toronto. Back in that time, and they just played it as because there was nothing but ice up there.
Mm-hmm.
They developed their own type of hockey equipment. They pioneered the hockey stick. All of this, yes, and it just like anything else, because we didn't have a means to establish something ourselves. At that time period, at that juncture, it just got taken. It just got taken from us, and
Mm-hmm.
established otherwise within the white community. So, and then it was dominated. It just was capitalized on, and as a sport, and it is what we've come to know it today as the NHL and other hockey leagues, and the game itself. But
So the
I
misnomer, so the thing that we have about black people that not like in cold weather, when it came to Canadian black people, they were perfectly fine with it, and they created the sport
mhm,
that many people regionally, because I don't know if it's as it's not necessarily worldwide, but it's definitely
right.
a regional domestic sport that's fairly popular. But I'll still put it at number. If I had to put it as far as the four major sports, it's going to be number four. It's going to be right
Yeah.
behind baseball and right behind basketball and right behind football. Everything's behind football now. So
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I can't really get get into hockey
I do like the hits
like
though.
that.
Dudes be hitting.
Yeah,
Dudes be hitting in
yeah,
hockey. I wish people would hit like that again in football because, good gosh, the cross checks
right.
be incredible. But I mean, not to digress too much, but I thought it was good to lead with the Bubba Wallace story. Mainly because what I have found over these last few years is that a lot of some major stuff that's been happening in the media when it comes to the the exposing of racism from a national conversation starter has been really starting or founded with guys who have white parents.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be honest with ourselves about colorism in the black community, and how it was designed to use against us, and how we saw primarily our ladies, because the guys really couldn't do much. The guys really couldn't do much in this area, but our women, who wanted to make sure they secured the bag back in the day, made sure
Yeah.
that because another misnomer about slavery, the chattel slavery. They want to keep on telling stories about how like almost every woman in slave times didn't have no choice but to get with the master, right?
Mm-hmm.
They sometimes they don't like to tell the stories of butt breaking, which is when a slave master would in fact take the biggest, strongest looking black man that was there and pretty much sodomize him in order to humiliate him in front of every woman and man that is in that particular grouping of slaves they had, so that they can quell slave uprisings, which happen more than people want to admit, but they could quell slave uprisings better by taking up the biggest among them and intimidating them from that standpoint. Um, some of those women saw the benefits and the rewards of laying with the master to preserve themselves and to make
Oh
a
yeah.
better generation for their children, and to
Yeah.
not take
Access to the house.
access to the house, and to not
Better
talk
food.
about that, and to not admit to that truth is not admitting to basic human nature. When these
Right.
people were in Africa, into their various villages and tribes and wherever else in kingdoms and things like that, and they were fighting among each other, just warfare and stuff among tribes, that happens. It's human nature, right? When
Right.
they took on slaves, if they had the ability to get in with the heads of that culture, whoever they were subservient to, then they would do it. That's just logically human nature. So
Yeah.
our ladies, and I can hear it now. You blaming black women for colorism? No, I'm not. Keep up.
Nah.
Man, I can just hear now. Keep up. Okay? So the ladies that chose that, outside the ladies who of course were forced and coerced, the
Right.
ladies that chose that also created part of this colorism aspect, because now their desire to be in the privileged class, which at the time and right now still happens to be majority white,
Mm-hmm.
is prevalent in our community today, and it comes and it manifests itself in different ways. So being part of the privileged community from then was making sure make sure you got enough stuff from master that you can have a baby that will be light enough to be accepted by the whites. May not be treated as good as a white person, but they're gonna be treated way better than you, and way better than the
Mm-hmm.
people who look like you that are dark. And I wanted to
Yeah.
kind of frame that because I firmly believe that one of the reasons why, and I'm just going to say it the way I say it, one of the reasons why I believe a Colin Kaepernick or a Bubba Wallace was able to gain the traction they were able to gain is because of black people's inherent nature to want to desire white culture to a certain extent, that we were more willing to believe that of a person who is biracial, that he wants to deal with racial injustice, than a person who looks
Mm-hmm.
like you and me who wants to deal with racial injustice. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because when Malcolm Jenkins was doing the same thing, and Eric Reed was doing the same thing, watch this. And Anquan Bolden was actually talking to Congress and actually getting things done. He retired
Yes.
from the NFL to actually pursue police reform and actually go into Congress, go into congressional doors,
Yep.
get his voice out there, not just sit back and brand himself. I told you I got about 2-3 hours of copy,
Shout out to
but
Anquan Bolden,
shout out
man.
to Anquan Bolden. That was because he has been doing
Yeah.
actual fundamental groundwork and not just yip yapping and making a good brand of himself. What is one? But see, Anquan
Yeah.
Bolden doesn't get any love. I believe because he doesn't have a brand to protect him. So he doesn't have a brand to push him or protect him. So he's not branded, which means he's also not enslaved to say
Yeah.
certain things in favor of certain,
Yeah.
certain demographics. But also because
Right.
I believe he's a dark skinned man. Was how many news reporters since he was first in Congress have been really honestly trying to keep Anquan Bolden in the national news for the work that he's been doing?
Not any at all.
And because he's the face of the movement, logically because he's the face of the movement, but how many years has it been since he's been in the NFL and they still keep bringing his name up that he should still play again, knowing that that's not going to work,
I
knowing that
mean, yeah.
I mean he's better than all those other quarterbacks. He could be, but he hasn't played in the real
Right.
NFL roster for 3 years. So
But
his
yeah, I mean,
playing, but that's another conversation. I apologize, but I just wanted to point to that I saw that a dark skinned man who's actually fundamentally working on things ain't getting nowhere near the love as Colin Kaepernick did.
right.
Jay Z, who helped form. Now Jay Z, now maybe this is just me, but last time I checked, Jay Z was pretty black, pretty dark
Yeah.
brown skinned dude. His
Mm-hmm.
wife, got a little mixture going on, but she's predominantly
Beyonce.
black. Beyonce. Shout out to the Bayhive. His
Oh, we don't want to
kids.
stir up the beehive.
Yeah, don't want to say the Beehive. You got a kid with a weird name named Blue Ivy. I don't know why you named your child that. That was weird. But you got kids with the same black woman, and together, culturally, you are some of the most influential entertainers, and you are a billionaire businessman that has tapped himself into every kind of market that he can tap himself into. And so I'm like this: why was Jay-Z so disrespected when he didn't include, or supposedly he didn't include, Colin Kaepernick on that coalition? Well,
Oh, well,
he was yelled at. It's like, if Colin Kaepernick ain't a part of this, it doesn't mean anything. What do you mean? Colin Kaepernick don't have to be part of it if he's a
right.
symbol. He don't have to be part
And
of it.
and to that, and to the point, it's Kaepernick. He didn't really co-sign Jay-Z. Most people don't realize that. Um, he took it for what it was. He took it as a medium, but he's Kaepernick himself has always looked at Jay-Z as a capitalist for his own gains. He's not really there to prop up Cap's message, to really say, oh, this is what needs to be done for social injustice. The way that he goes about his business with, say, Meek Mill for prison reform. He just he Jay-Z, if you really look at what he's done in his merging with the NFL, if you want to put it that way, it's nothing but to prop him and establish himself within the NFL hierarchy. That's it. He's not really trying to say, oh, you need to give the anthem its due, and give the players their right to protest. He's not really saying that. He really was there more or less to spur the conversation about diversity, and to lend to some of those ideas, but to ultimately capitalize on it. Okay, the NFL. He's
So
the
now
one
that's
in
what
the
I gotta ask you.
NFL.
I gotta ask you specifically about that, right? Because we talk about the capitalize on. Now, what is the net positive? Because I I saw the move that Jay Z was doing, right? And I already know that Jay Z has never. And here's my difference between Colin Kaepernick and Jay Z. Jay Z's never lied to me. This is me. Jay Z's
Uh
never
huh.
lied to me about what he is and what he's about. I felt that personally, Cap did exactly what you said and took the real issue that I do stand with him on when it comes to the real issue of police brutality, and
Yeah.
use it for his brand to better and capitalize on himself. I thought that Cap lost his entire livelihood. I thought he lost everything. And I ain't talking about his ability to play
No.
football. I thought he lost endorsements and everything. 2 years down the road, when he found
he
out,
did lose some. He did lose some,
but yeah, so he did lose
but
some.
he didn't lose all of them.
I thought he lost all of them. And when I found out that the main purveyor of slave labor in the world today, one of the largest, was still paying his checks and was paying him his endorsement checks, I was like, oh, so you didn't lose anything. Like, not the way it was portrayed by sports media and left media that he lost everything that he did for the cause. Now, I've seen someone lose everything for the cause, lose all their stuff, get harassed by local media, get trumped up charges against them when it comes to fake, weed or whatever kind of drug charge they can find. Try to get baby moms involved so that they can go ahead and. I've seen someone actually go through the ringer for what justice actually is. So when I speak on Colin Kaepernick, I'm not speaking against the issue that he presented. I'm speaking against the man himself, because that's just where I am. That's why I feel that Jay-Z didn't lie. The long game that I see of a person who's already an established billionaire getting into the offices and the rooms of other billionaires is that it leaves the door open for something that we haven't seen in the NFL, and that I think it can happen within your and my lifetime. We can see black NFL ownership. And that's what I believe that Jay-Z's long-term plan is, to not necessarily himself, but to get the door open and get the ball rolling on black ownership. Because until then, a black owner wasn't even going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not. It was no offense to Mr. Khan, down there in Jacksonville, but you don't count. And so you don't count. I like his wrestling. I like him and his son's wrestling company. I like AEW. I like Jacksonville's a fun to watch and an easy 2 wins from my Indianapolis Colts. So I appreciate them. But I believe that long term speaking, because Jay-Z's never lied to me about what he's about. He's about getting more money. I believe that that he paved the way in this sense to get a black ownership in the NFL, which for me is a good long-term plan and a long-term solution to build other things.
What if I told you that the only impetus to that is that Jay-Z becomes the owner, not anybody else?
If he becomes the owner, that still counts because we still got a black owner.
But what I'm saying is, what is he doing or trying to do across the board? There's not much evidence aside from himself. There isn't much evidence to say that he's championing for other African Americans, that are struggling to get in, that have tried to make bids, all that stuff. There's none of that.
Okay, well, I would say this: if we're using W.E.B. Du Bois' argument of the talented tenth, right? Jay-Z would be one of those ones in that talented tenth, where his actions don't necessarily mean that he has to. And I hold black people accountable. I hold different black celebrity stuff accountable for this all the time. Where you say you want to help the community, but you don't actually put money into it. In the case of Jay-Z's lane, I don't know how much charitable work that he has done. He doesn't talk about it, or I haven't seen him market it. But what I have seen him do is create companies and create businesses that shows that it can be credible black leaders in these different kinds of business ventures. And because we have credible black people in these different kind of ventures, it gives us more opportunity for those of us who may want to be entrepreneurs like you and I. We've talked about different entrepreneurial ventures. It gives us a more of an opportunity to go ahead and function in those circles because they have one that they can trust. And sometimes it just takes one to get in there for others to kind of still have the opportunity as well. So, we were talking about off air, Dr. Ben Carson earlier. Sometimes it just takes one exceptional neuroscientist so that the rest of us can be taken seriously when we get into the medical profession. I've seen football players, it was a football player in Florida. Was it Roll? His last name was Roll, where he was he was doing neurosurgery. He was a football player in Florida State. So he was. And so it just opens the door. If you're wanting to function in a scientific world back in the 80s and 90s, well, Neil deGrasse Tyson gave you inspiration as a black person to make sure that, oh, wow, I can go ahead and be in this sphere too. I don't know if he
Right.
actually cared about bringing other black people with him, but he at least opened the door and it gave. And if I wanted to be a famous scientist like him, I could at least put in the work. And now that we have Neil deGrasse Tyson, so I think the effect with Jay-Z will be similar. If even though he may be out for himself in this, one, he's honest about it. One, he's honest about it,
Yeah.
and two, it still gives me and you, if we ever become multi-billionaires, the opportunity to be able to do the same thing. Because well, we got one, so we can go ahead and diversify. But these football teams are toys, our family toys, are heirlooms. So most of these folks are going to pass it down to their kids anyway. So
Yeah, you got that. You
unless
got
unless they
the
pull unless they pull unless they pull a Donald Sterling and get forced out.
right. Yeah, it's gonna take. That's I think that's what it'll probably take the most. But I think it should go without saying that the NFL has to do better about having that door open. It shouldn't just necessarily be, oh, inheritance and all of that. If you're selling it,
Mm-hmm.
the previous owner should understand this is an open market. It shouldn't be a closed market. People like Robert Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
former CEO of BET and stuff like that. He shouldn't get cut out. The people like Magic Johnson shouldn't get cut out. Who have the means. Like
Yes. Yes.
it goes without saying. So why can't these types of people apply? What's holding them up? It's literally just what the NFL sees fit to allow in as ownership. Period.
I mean,
And
yeah,
it, and
but
it,
there's 32 independent. There's 32 independent franchises. And one of the reasons why Roger Goodell keeps on getting money, he keeps on getting renewed contracts, is because he keeps on increasing their money. If the NFL owners
right.
knew, if the NFL owners knew that expanding from 32 teams to, let's say, 40,
Mm-hmm.
that way they add two. Would it be 40? Hold on, it'd be two. Um, no, that would be just in the NFC. So it have to be 16 more teams. So the 48 teams. Just it's ridiculous. It'll be stupid, but let's just say that with a 17 game season, the Roger Goodell convinced the ownership that we can either expand to 48 teams in order to reach a revenue stream of $100 billion a year, which means that each franchise from 48 will get at least 2 billion of that, right? So the owners may like, oh, okay, so what do we have to do? And Roger Goodell says we need to make sure that all 16 of these teams have minority ownership. The only language that they're going to be listening to is the language of what? The dollar bill. And so
Right.
while the protests were racially motivated and racially charged when they came to the national anthem, when the NFL decided to cut showing the anthem at their football games, all the ratings went back up and all the revenue went back up. So obviously, it wasn't
Yeah.
just a racial thing; it was a money thing, and they did it because if Colin Kaepernick kneeling never hurt any kind of money for the NFL, Colin Kaepernick would still be in the NFL. He'll be a heck of a
Well,
distraction,
I
but
mean,
he would still be
yeah,
in the
that
NFL. And that's all. I honestly believe that because you are NFL, NFL people, they'll keep you in the NFL as long as your talent outweighs your talent outweighs the money loss or the possible distraction. Your talent, if Colin Kaepernick being a former Super Bowl quarterback and winning to the playoffs the very next year, Super Bowl playing quarterback, not winning obviously. All those things worked in his favor for him to be successful, right? If he was still a top tier quarterback with that trash team that he was playing on the last year before he was out, had he took that team to the playoffs, would have been no question he still would have been in the NFL. Process no, in my
right.
opinion. Process no. But it's easy to make numbers, and I like when people bring up numbers, and I didn't mean to get on Colin Kaepernick, I apologize. It's easy to bring up his numbers and make it seem like he's comparable like Jimmy Garoppolo, and not realize that, in my opinion, it was more comparable to Dak Prescott. And what I mean by that is that Dak Prescott threw for like almost 4,500 yards, like the most touchdowns he's ever threw for and stuff this season.
Hmm.
But his
Yeah.
team was 8-8 and missed the playoffs. They got beat. The last game that they needed to get to the playoffs, they got beat by Carson Wentz in lawn chairs. Carson Wentz was throwing to lawn chairs,
Yeah.
and they still lost. So
Still lost.
and they still lost. So any quarterback can put up fantastic numbers. Can put up fantastic numbers in the fourth quarter when your team was already down by 3-4 touchdowns. That's why I'm worried about Phillip Rivers coming to my Colts because his fourth quarter stats look real good, but it's primarily because he put them in the hole and he has to
Right.
feel like
He
crazy.
has to play that way.
So but that's what I mean by that. And let me make sure I shift to it. That's why I bring up the Colin Kaepernick effect, because Colin Kaepernick is birth of a white mother and a black father. Bubba Wallace, I believe his father is white, his mother was black. Barack Obama's mom is white, his dad's black. Barack Obama can actually say he's legitimately an African American.
Right.
And Justice Smollett, of course, we talk about that. And I brought them up because it seems like when we want to champion racism, they are the faces. How come we have moved away from has the colorism aspect of our society, and I may have made this assertion earlier, have it driven a wedge between black activists who are actually dark-skinned versus black activists who are biracial? Because it seems like the main kind of activists that are listened to are those that are lighter, a little bit more palatable for the white audience. And in order for the dark-skinned person to be palatable for the white audience, it seems like the dark-skinned person has to be part of the LGBT community. It is weird to me. Why can't a straight cisgendered, I'm using that with quotes, a straight cisgender black man, dark-skinned black man, be the face of the movement now? Why does that black man have to be either trans or gay for him to be acceptable? Or why does that black man have to be light-skinned? What have you seen? Am I off? Do you see me? Do I seem like I'm talking out my face? Well, not my face, but the other part of my body when it comes to this? Or am I saying something that's logical and prevalent for our society?
I think that's just a matter of what you're able to see when it comes to protesting and who's at the podium. Watching a lot of the protests in Richmond, I noticed a lot of females of a long range of colors. I never really paid attention to it. Some white, even. So, but to what you're saying, there have been far fewer males, like dark-skinned males, at the podium that you're seeing putting out a message like that. I don't think it's on purpose, if you ask me. I just think it lends to who is more passionate about the subject matter. Really?
Really? You don't
Yeah,
think that
because
me and you
I
ain't
think a
passionate about the
majority.
black community?
But what I'm saying is just as you when you look at it, when you
Yes, sir.
really put a microscope to it, what are you seeing? I've never sat back and thought about it that hard. I just wanted to hear the message. I just wanted to hear what they're standing up for, why they're upset. And until you came to me and said, "Hey, this is what Black Lives Matter is really about," it just blew my mind with that. It never occurred to me about who is up there actually touting for the movement.
Yeah, and to clarify, when he said that I showed him what Black Lives Matter was about, we're not talking about the sentiment of Black lives actually mattering and what we need to do to address police brutality in our
No, we're not
communities.
talking about
We're
that.
talking about I was showing him the details of the formal organization and their actual charter.
Right.
They literally tell you
Right.
what they believe and
what they are about,
and what they're about. So let's just say that me and Ron are on their list about what they care about. So
we're not. We're heterosexual black males, and we're not their focus.
We're not their focus we're not their focus until we get shot by a police officer or shot by a white person.
But I think the message kind of gets perverted a little bit because people do genuinely want to say that our lives matter.
Yes.
If they're not looking at our sexual orientation when they say that, and I think that's why it kind of gets weird because the main focal point of Black Lives Matter as their like description and their on their about page is completely on another platform.
Yes.
It's not about the black male that gets shot by the police and under police brutality and all of that. It's really more about the sexual orientation of said black person or even black female male, that is what their real message is about.
Yeah.
Transgender folks, LGBTQ, all of that.
But
That's
and before someone becomes real stupid and try to pin you or me down, saying that we're anti somebody, like no, we
we're
both
not.
have people who are related to us and or friends
Hmm.
with us that are of that overarching community umbrella. Uh,
Hmm.
I I have my stances on different aspects of what a rights is and what a privilege is, but everyone deserves to be treated with the same daggone respect and under the law, equal protection under the law. You should
Right.
not. There should be no discrimination. I don't care that you want to do what you want to do in your personal life. That is not something that should be bearing on
Right.
whether or not you're qualified for my job or qualified to be a
Right.
part of my life. If you're a good person, I'm with you. If you are a jerk, I don't want you around. I don't care what
Right.
it is. So we're both advocates of treating people equally, not anti-discrimination here. We're just talking about and giving the facts of what the website is showing and how
Right.
that represents us as a community. When we yell Black Lives Matter, folks are going to attack the catchphrase itself, and they're going to attack the organization that's behind it. And you got to be ready with knowledge so
Right.
that you can be like, well, I understand that that's what their focus is as an organization, but I believe, but to suggest that Black lives don't matter, well, just because the
Right.
organization is trash, or not necessarily trash, but I disagree with their particular set of values, doesn't mean that Black lives doesn't matter.
Right. And I think a majority of people that are saying that that's where they're coming from.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the mainstream of people that hashtag that, they really have no real understanding of what Black Lives Matter really came about to be and what it came about to be from. And that's not their fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's that's the correlation, and that's on its face. Those are just the words people want to say. They want to say
Yes.
that these people matter. We shouldn't be getting gunned down. I mean, hell, like, when's the last time you heard of a white dude getting shot in the back?
Oh, they don't talk. They're
Really?
not going to talk about
But
that. They're not going
right,
to talk
but
about that.
but still,
We
even
now
if even if you did research on it,
you
when,
serving in the law enforcement, you've heard a story or two, but most of the time they getting shot in the face.
I mean,
Most of the time when I got getting shot, they getting shot straight up. They're not getting
but
shot, and sometimes they
right,
get shot running away, but it's not in the same numbers. We talk about
right.
proportionality, so
It's
yeah.
not to the same, you know, consistent level
Hmm.
in which it happens to us, in which it happens to the black community. I I I argue a lot with people who say, "Well, all lives matter." I'm like, well, that's only a rebuttal to Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, it's a
That,
rebuttal to the
that's
slogan.
that's
It's
that's
rebuttal to
all
the
it
slogan,
is.
but not to the
It
actual purpose
it
behind it. And the sin and shame about what you just said right there, we have to explain Black Lives Matter not only to the All Lives Matter crowd, but then to
mhm,
the All Black Lives Matter crowd. There's a crowd and
mhm,
contingency of black people that swear up and down when certain black people say Black Lives Matter, they're not including their community. It's like, but we just said Black Lives Matter. Well, what all Black Lives Should Matter is like, oh
right,
gosh, oh,
right.
you're just like the well-meaning and well-intentioned white person who
It
said
makes your
all
head
lives
hurt.
matter. Like
It makes your head hurt that you have to dissect it.
for both parties,
Just right,
for the predominantly all lives matter white crowd, and then certain different segments of Black Lives Matter who feel disenfranchised by the Black Lives Matter movement. It's like, well, you're the main.
mm,
If you look at the organization's charter, you're the main
yeah,
goal. and the
yeah,
and the main and the people who are mostly represented in their staffing.
right.
So,
Well, let's man, we could go on that
but
for a
but
while.
Ron, when you but talking about that particular thing right there shows us how when we have so many black people in our country right now and across the world that are so
Hmm.
charged emotionally
Yeah.
that we don't think and we don't think long term about how some things and how we act and who we support can affect us because see that's the kind of stuff and because I think this is gonna be the next thing we're talking about. That's the kind of stuff that's going to get Donald Trump elected again in November. And if you don't want Donald
Right.
Trump to win, and you want to continue to make fun of his Tulsa, Oklahoma rally, you want to make fun
Yeah.
of that, but then you keep on falling for the Bubba Wallace stuff without knowing all the facts. You
Right.
keep doing these things. Well, guess what? That rally that Trump had in Tulsa, Oklahoma, yeah, it wasn't full. It wasn't jam packed. Combination of things: people not being enthused, people not being disillusioned from him, people not
Right.
showing up because of COVID. You know, there could be
You
any
got
number of
you got the
reasons.
you got the TikTokers.
And you got the, well, oh gosh, hold on.
The
You did bring
K-pop
that up.
movement.
What was the
Yeah,
TikTok of the
that's what.
K-pop movement?
So listen. There's this big movement that's going on with K-pop. There's this boy band that's coming out of South Korea that's pretty huge. Or like they're basically like the next Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and all that.
That must be
All right.
BTS.
There you go. I couldn't remember
Yeah,
their
yeah. A lot of people,
yeah.
a lot of people I
So
teach. Yeah,
so they are more they're more active politically than I came to understand until I looked into it. As far as like injustice and wanting things to be equal, they're real champions for that. So they did a challenge over TikTok that said, "Hey, get let's get some tickets and not show up." Okay, like that was the pre-impetus of it,
okay.
and it was one of those things where it was hard to track until the actual rally happened, like to see if it really took place. But they challenged people to take video, do their own TikTok, showing that they're getting all these tickets to the maximum limit. I think it was like you could get like 6 tickets for the rally for one person,
Okay.
that kind of thing. So people were making the TikToks. So I'm going to the rally, but not really. Sorry, not sorry was the trending hashtag for it. And lo and behold, you see what kind of transpired. They had this big overflow area for the people who were expected to come but couldn't get in because there was only a certain capacity for the arena.
Mm-hmm.
There was supposed to be technically 2 speeches that were going to take place. The one that was in the arena and the overflow speech that would happen where Trump would have went out and spoke to a large crowd outside. There was a whole stage set up outside, all of that. And it just didn't happen. There were like 4 people outside. All the people who sat outside and camped out it was not necessary. Everybody got in as soon as the doors opened.
Mm-hmm.
You still had somewhere around a ballpark of about about 100,000 or so people could fit in there, but only like 6,900. So
Yeah, so about
not
a
900,000.
100,000. I'm about to say 100,000 get through that. I thought it was like 19 or something.
No, it
Was it
was.
19?
It's a full arena.
It's a
It's a
full
full
arena.
yeah.
Oh,
So yeah. So yeah,
I was looking up the information.
it's a little false. It's a little false to when you look at it to understand. Oh, maybe he would have had a bigger rally if that didn't happen, but
Maybe.
it definitely happened.
So you said this came from BTS doing a
Mhm.
TikTok challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, so I understand what they were trying to do. I saw some black people from really pro black people on Facebook talk about doing it too.
Hmm.
I'm gonna be honest here,
Yeah. They
because
kind
we
of
like to be honest. That's stupid. That was really stupid. And
right.
the reason why it was stupid is because Trump has been very, very good in the area of spinning things to make himself
Oh
come
yeah.
out as something better than what it
This
is.
was this was epic spin right here.
And you can't.
Especially when you offer it up that hey, you tried to subvert his rally on
Yes,
purpose.
yes. You offer up that you try to subvert his rally on purpose. So, but you did it. Here's the stupid part. You try to subvert Trump's rally by selling it out and not showing up.
Hmm.
What's the one thing Trump's going to focus on? The fact that it
That,
was sold out.
yeah, of
The fact
course
that the fact that it
he's
was
gonna
sold out,
say I did sell that place out
and just blame
and
COVID,
or he's gonna blame the left and
which he
the
did,
media, which he
which they
always
did.
does,
Yeah, they
and
did.
and go on this whole tangent and all of that, and he's not necessarily going to be wrong
Yeah,
because
he's not.
people couldn't wait, they couldn't wait to say we did this.
Yes.
Like, look what we did to Trump's rally. Ha ha he he.
Ha ha
And
he he. So you
yeah,
gave you ha ha he he by giving the guy money for his freaking campaign.
you did.
That helps
Well,
him out. You gave
I
him
don't
money for the campaign. Like
I
I
don't know
did.
if those tickets were. I don't think you had to pay for those though.
Oh, were they giveaway tickets or were they
Yeah,
actual
they
tickets
were.
to pay?
Yeah, you just had to RSVP.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
So okay, so I was
So
so it's
because
literally
that's
how to
why
pay for the
I mean
tickets.
that's where the joke was with this because it was like a horde of teenagers that kind of took to this like America's Got Talent and
Ah, okay.
that's right.
So it wasn't so okay. So I stand corrected because I did wrong. So I don't mind being wrong. So these tickets were not paid tickets
No,
because
you just all you had to
when
do
I was looking on the
was
Facebook
RSVP
timeline,
these things.
when I was looking at my Facebook timeline, I was seeing the pro black talk about it. They kept on using the word buy, and I'm like, why are they buying
Uh,
tickets to not show up? Why would you
no,
do that? That's not smart.
yeah,
Because
yeah, it's
if you buy the ticket and don't show up, like you just say, he will spend it. But then let's just say black people did this in mass. Let's just say because we
hmm
talked about this on the last podcast, $2.1 trillion in,
yeah,
in
it's
spending.
absurd.
So we take if we bought out, with the exception of the 7,000 acts to show up, almost 7,000 acts showed up, and we bought out the rest of the tickets. That means that Trump would have been able to use that African Americans in record numbers
hmm
bought tickets to a Trump rally
Right.
because they're tired of seeing the left such and such and Democrats such and such.
Yeah.
You can't give the guy any
Ammunition.
fuel for his base. You already got a crap candidate on your side anyway. With sleepy, creepy Joe Biden. Yeah, I'm using the Trumpism on sleepy, creepy Joe Biden because the guy fell asleep in the interview. And if you see all the videos, the live videos of
hmm
him being a creeper, he got live videos of him being a creeper. It's on C-SPAN, folks. The clips are
Here
there.
I say they're equally creepy.
Yes, they're equally creepy. They are equally
Did
creepy.
you see where he was at West Point?
Which one?
It,
You talk about Biden or Trump?
Trump, where he gave the commencement speech for West Point.
No, I am.
And there's I'll show you the video. Well, basically,
Okay.
there was this I don't know if she's a student or what she was, but she was presenting ahead of him or introducing him, and there's this whole weird interaction of him wanting to kiss her or like a cheeky kiss. It's really bad. It's
Oh
like
man.
because at first she wasn't going for that. She was
Yeah.
just kind of going in to shake his hand, and you know how Trump does the pull in. He
Yeah, he
kind
does. He does. He is a pull in. He is a pull in
he
guy.
pulls it in, and he's like looking for the cheek kiss, and she doesn't. You can tell she doesn't really want to do it,
Yeah.
but then he leans in further on it, and she never really kisses him. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like she kind of went in anyway. He went and he backed up. Yeah, it was just yeah. I'm surprised you haven't seen that. It's floating around the internet right now, but
And
yeah.
you know what? You know what's sad about that though, because we know how this is going to work, because how our media works. They're going to take that one video and they're going to keep on bringing up his comments about a woman who knows that you're a wealthy, powerful person will let you do certain things that other women won't. That there's certain women who will do that, and we know the actual quote. I don't need to say it. They'll use that, right? But then ignore this. That's what I don't like. I don't like the hypocrisy. Just be fair.
Yeah.
Be fair. They will never bring up Biden sniffing and or they just say he's just being affectionate. It's like no. It's okay. It's okay to call them both equally creepy.
It's old man creepiness.
It's old man creepiness, and it's okay to say that. Like you don't have to be afraid that you're gonna get blackballed by the DNC if you say, Joe, you got to stop being creepy. Just stop.
Shake a hand and keep it moving.
Shake a hand. Give a high five. Just don't do what you're just do something. Give a fist bump. Like Bernie Sanders at least knows how to dap up black people. Like at least know how to do that much. I mean, come on. No, I'm not a Bernie bro. I'm just saying what is. You know, and oh gosh, remember this even worse. I forgot. I think it was at a funeral. I can't remember, but it was one where Bill Clinton. It may have been George H.W. Bush's funeral, where Ariana Grande was singing a solo in a certain kind of dress,
and Bill Clinton was sitting up there, yo.
Bill Clinton.
The other people that were up there doing eulogies and doing everything else, he looked tired as all, uninterested. Then Ariana Grande gets up there, boy.
That boy perked up, man.
You you'd have thought it was his second wave of puberty or something. Like, God, like, and now I didn't think it was right that they had to get in on Hillary though after seeing his expression looking
yeah,
at Ariana.
yeah.
Then they gonna go and put the camera right on Hillary. Like,
Yeah, it was
dang.
bad.
'Cause-
It was really
like,
bad. Like we got some serious creep. We got some serious creeps in our federal government, man, and
yo,
we'll be able to address that sooner rather than later. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. Did you see prior to Trump's rally? Did you see Biden's rally? The pictures in Philadelphia. He did his rally over there and stuff.
no, I didn't.
We can make fun of Trump all we want to for having 6,900 people in a place that should have fit way more than that. It looked like that when I saw the pictures. I thought it was Photoshop. I thought it was a prank.
No,
The brother was like in a high school gym. What was he at?
I don't know.
It was like
you talking
4
about
people.
Joe?
Yeah, it was like 4 people there, like
Yeah,
a high school gym.
I don't know. I haven't even really been, to be honest, I haven't really been paying attention to Joe and his like campaign.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't paying
stuff.
attention to Joe and his campaign, but they're going to vote. They're going to hold. A lot of Democrats right now are going to hold their noses and vote for him regardless. So
Yeah, the last thing I saw with Joe was like a town hall, and the guy was questioning him about his I think it was a crime bill. And Joe kind of took offense to it, and he said that he wasn't really for criminal justice the right way because he did what he did in the bills he signed in back in the 90s, etc. And yeah, that's the last thing I've seen about Joe.
Oh gosh.
I think it was like a town hall style kind of thing.
Oh gosh. What are the Democrats? The only way, and there's some. I don't know what the Democrats are going to do. And I'm hearing rumblings, hearing more details about what actually happened in Georgia when it came to the Stacey Abrams and Kemp and it was a Kemp campaign when they did the gubernatorial race. Heard some details about that. Hearing that Kentucky is shutting down almost 95% of polling places.
Oh yeah,
I'm sitting here thinking like I was like, okay, now see, there's one thing to say that Russia colluded with the Trump campaign. That narrative has been disproven and debunked 800,000 times, yet they still say it. It's a whole nother thing that's not being talked about enough, that needs to be talked about enough. Because see, when I first heard the Georgia thing with Kemp and Abrams, when I first heard it, they were talking in buzzwords. They weren't giving me substantive evidence that said, well, no, this guy's the Secretary of the State and he runs the elections and he's running for governor. He's shutting down polling places and where mostly blacks would vote. And of course, the majority of places where blacks want to vote, even in the South, the majority of them are going to vote Democrat. So you're actively shutting down and suppressing the black vote because you know they're not going to vote for you. Okay, well, that's a problem. But that wasn't exposed, and the guy still got elected. That's weird. That should have happened, but it wasn't really getting an investigative attention that it should have gotten. It got, we're left-wing people and Democrats, and you're trying to beat up and subjugate black people. And the black people was like, okay, but where's your evidence? And every time we kept on saying, where's your evidence? They weren't talking with evidence. After the fact, when everything already happened, the evidence is there. But now they can't, almost like with Governor Northam, we can't do anything. It's almost like we can't do anything about it. Our hands are tied. Well, now you actually have a chance to stop something from happening in Kentucky right now. But I don't see it being talked about because Bubba Wallace is more important.
Right.
Bubba Wallace or his fake noose and his noose, no noose. Or was it a noose or was it a pull-down cord? It was a pull-down cord fashioned in the noose. But it's a slip knot. The slip knots look like nooses.
It does.
But what's happening in Kentucky right now is actual voter suppression. If you don't stop that, if you do not make that your main headline, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, and all of y'all, including Fox News, if none of y'all make that your main headline, then I know what's going on, and it ain't exactly what you're telling me. You can call me whatever. You can call me conspiracy theories. By the way, everyone who calls someone conspiracy theorist, you actually don't know what words mean because currently, right now, as Ron and I are sitting here talking over a Zoom voice, we are technically two people who are agreeing to certain things, and we are technically conspiring. Okay, so
Technically,
you
yeah,
we're technically conspiring. So
yep.
it's that's another conversation for another time. I try to tell you, I go places with this, but
But you're right about Kentucky. Um, they know Mitch is done. Uh, the just the Senate in general and what it's allowed to go on
hmm
or be hear no evil, speak no evil, and all that
facts.
when it comes to Trump. At the end of the day, people are not going to forget. They're not gonna forget how you basically just did nothing while this dude kind of took a wrecking ball to government. Now, some people did want for that initially, right?
Yeah, there's something.
People want
There's some
people
things that
did
I would say I like. I don't.
they,
I want my businesses. I
they
want people who are in businesses, especially
right.
black business
They
owners, to have
they
little less roadblocks.
they wanted that type of uh, break from tradition
Hmm
that we've been dealing with our government for the past, I don't know, 2 decades or so,
And they
of
got
just
exactly what they wanted.
kind of like this gridlock, right?
Yes.
Of just we can't seem to get what we need done, whether you're blue or red or purple or green, right? You just have a whole bunch of arguments and debates that don't come up with anything. You might have some valid points here on the conservative side and have some valid points on the liberal side, but we still can't seem to get a decent bill, passed into law that's going to benefit Americans as a whole, you know. And people were tired of that, and I think that's what really gave rise to Trump. But after he gets there, and he can't seem to be what's necessary in
hmm
that position.
hmm
Yes, he's a real straightforward, straight talking, gonna say what he wants to say, do what he wants to do kind of person. But you still need somebody that can operate within said government. You can't
Yes.
have somebody that's gonna completely, even on both sides of this thing. He's starting to kick people out that investigate him or anybody associated to him. You've got the appearance of, kind of dictatorship, if you want to put it that way, where if any wrongdoing is done, you're gone, you're fired. You're not a loyalist. You're not for the Trump cause to its core, so you got to go. You know,
hmm
nobody voted.
Honestly,
I don't
I
think.
wish Obama did. I wish Obama did some of that when he was in office. I
Oh
believe that.
yeah,
I wish he did
to
some
an
of that because
extent, but
some of that is
nobody.
understanding, but then some of that was like, okay, Trump, what are you doing?
But nobody. What I'm trying to say is nobody wants such an extreme polarizing figure in there
Hmm
that even still we can't really get things done the way we need them to get done.
Yes.
To the point where it's so polarizing, people are just so against you and your stance that people don't can't even come to the table even if they wanted to. There's a distinction here between Obama and Trump. Okay, there were at least people on the Republican side that could come and say, yeah, I'm willing to work and be bipartisan,
Yes.
right? It wasn't this really hyper frowned upon thing. Aside from just, okay, a majority of your constituency is red,
Yes.
right? And how dare you go and work with this guy over here on the blue side, right?
hmm
Now you magnify that type of thinking times 1,000 with Trump, from the blue to the red. What can you do? Because this guy, he's shutting down things that were actually put into place, through a bipartisan, like colleagueship, if you want to put it that way.
hmm
It's just been torn down, and things aren't able to progress and go forward and be as they are, simply because this dude, he doesn't like it, or his base doesn't like it,
Yeah.
and it's not
it has become
helping.
hyper partisan. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
become
not
more
helping.
partisan.
It's
Excuse
not
me.
helping our country.
No.
It's not helping our our way of life. When after you get away from politics, after you get away from voting and all of that, it's not helping people day to day. To have
hmm
such a polarizing person in there that isn't a champion for equality, whether you believe in something or not. You know, Trump is more of like, well, this is what I believe in. I don't think the homosexual community is right, and I don't think this and that and that. That's where he is.
Yeah.
That's where he leads his policy on, or attempts to, or base his policy in, and feel like he's feeding to a base of people that voted for him for that. And it's unfortunate. We're going to have people in our society that feel that way,
Mm-hmm.
but our government has to operate above that.
And, but see,
Just does.
this is where I necessarily I differ with you because I agree with you on your assessment. But this is why I always tell people, and folks get mad for saying this. I always tell people it's like, look, if government is going to government, and I do that GUB, if government going to government, right?
Government going to government.
Yeah, if they going to government, then the one thing that we should start really focusing on and focusing in on is the one thing that they can't tear down, which is our community. Excuse me. It's the one thing that they've been attacking majorly, which is our community, our individual communities. Get to know your neighbors, learn how to grow your own food, have babies and have more babies and have more babies. Well, what if you can't afford it? No. That's the point. Because as you're fruitful and multiplying in this sense, and you're growing your own food, and you're building a community with other like-minded people, the one thing that they can't stop you from doing now is being unified and being a unified front. For example, those people who know about the Vietnam War, the Vietnam conflict, knows that we lost a lot of men in that war, and was mainly because we were fighting a group of people who knew their landscape, who knew and was a community. So it was very, very hard to beat them. You can go back in history and the history that they won't teach you because it's been washed, and it's been just as blackwashed as it has whitewashed. You just gotta. There's a reason why I say that. So there's slave uprisings that are not talked about. There are slave who rose up, did what they had to do, formed their own community. And
Christmas addicts,
all those kind, and you got the strong white dominant culture couldn't stop them and couldn't overtake them. In fact, they couldn't overtake them to the point where they had to negotiate with them so they could have their own community. So, that's why when it comes to someone else trying to fight a war with us, they never going to fight on American soil. Why is that?
Oh, it'll never happen.
Excuse me. They're gonna bomb. They're gonna bomb the heck out of us first to try to defeat. But when they come, when they come on the soil, to think that they're gonna go ahead and finish off people without bombing the whole country flat, they're gonna run into a rude awakening because
there's too many guns here.
Way too many guns and way too many people who know how to use them. Just
right, and it can't wait. It can't wait.
It can't wait. We actually want. They say, hey, I'm ready. We are. Trust me. Ron and I are ready for you, foreign people who want to take over our country. We are ready for you. And I'm talking about there's 50 million people in this country. Probably about 200 million of them have guns.
Yep.
And not just one gun. And plenty of ammo. And they are ready.
Able-bodied males and females.
Able-bodied, and we know what to do with these things too. And so that's why if government's going to govern, the strongest thing we can do at a certain thing that's outside of control is to build our individual communities and to make sure that where we're living out here in the countryside, we know how to grow our own food. We make friends with people who know how to grow food and raise cattle, and we build up ourselves. And I don't care if they white, and I don't care if they black. They're going to know me. They're going to be friendly with me. We're going to have family cookouts and barbecues together. They're going to love my ribs. And the reason why is because I want to make sure that what I have worked hard for, and I extend this to Ron. I'm not speaking for him. I'm just saying I extended my what I want to do with Ron and his family as well. I want to protect myself and Ron from outside forces that attempt to destroy what we have worked hard to build.
Right.
And I don't care if you're a black person who represents the Black Lives Matter organization or protest. You come in my neighborhood, and you and your white Antifa friends or whoever you got going, thinking that y'all can come to my neighborhood and take all that I have worked hard for me and my black family. Trust me, your black life ain't gonna matter that day. If you think that your cause is if you think that your cause is so important that you can destroy my livelihood, it's not going down. And I'm not saying that because it be disparaging to black people or to what our cause is. I'm telling you that the nature of what we need is community building. And the reason why the cities are going to suffer is because no one there knows how to grow their own food. No one knows where food comes from.
That's going to be the first breakdown. Unless you got a community garden.
Yes.
There's a few of those in
A
some
real,
cities,
and I'm talking about a
but
real community garden that's not ran by a certain demographic that thinks they're better and this is so much better than you. They have to be your
ju-
savior.
just in general,
Yeah, in general.
there's it's gonna be the apocalypse in cities, man.
Yes, it
It's gonna
is.
go down real hard. And if you're not, this is where I get on about people being familiar with weapons that aren't in our society. Believe it or not, it's like, don't look at this thing and all you looking at it as is a paperweight or a rock.
Hmm.
Okay, because if it comes to pass, you need to protect yourself from someone else with one. Okay, and you've got the opportunity to. You don't want to be the one standing there without no knowledge about how the safety works and how to load it, you know, and fire it. It's like, hey, you got to at least be familiar in a society where you probably walk past guns all the time. You just don't realize it.
Hmm.
You don't want to be the one left out when it comes down to it. And you can be pro gun, you can be anti gun, whatever. But you know, it's like you don't want to be the big wildebeest in the back with the lions.
Oh
You want to be the
gosh.
wildebeest in the front. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? Like that knows what they're doing. You just don't want to get caught up like that. And you're right. People are have gotten too into convenience, that they've lost this knowledge base of what to do, how to cultivate, how to fix things. You know, now I'm not no handyman. Don't get me wrong
Hmm.
when I say, because there are some things that I'm not privy to being. I can't build a house myself.
Hmm.
Okay, but at the same time, I can still get out here. I can turn some land and
Yeah,
get me cabbage in the ground and some peas and some tomatoes and stuff like that.
and then get some fast growing crops that
Right.
you don't have to starve yourself in 3 weeks.
Exactly.
Like so. I mean, and that's the thing because understanding and knowing something as simple as where your food comes from
Yeah.
could mean all the world to you when the second wave, as people are calling it, which is we haven't even got on the first wave yet. We're just going back to work. When this thing, if COVID hits again, well, I'm going to be in a different position than most people because I'm going to be learning how to properly preserve and store all this food that I'm growing. So that way, if all else fails and I got to go vegan for a couple of months, I'm going to have the things necessary to to do it. You know, um, so I mean that's just where I stand when it comes to that aspect. I believe that we can really benefit from growing our own individual communities. So then that's why when a Donald Trump or someone else or Biden, depending on who wins this election, you know, what their election doesn't stop us. Like they're not coming for us. Like they're not going to come for you. Okay, they're not going to send brown. They're not going to send brown coats after you for having your own little individual community. In fact, if you have a
Hmm.
good community and a solid community that's strong on values, they can't send anyone after you because they can't stop you. And they won't really be able to overtake you without going to some extreme measures to do so. They'd rather just keep on going to the place that's easier to affect, which is going to be the city. City is the easiest population to sway. Have you heard any rallies going on in country places? I've heard they going on in major cities, and places where there are liberal college on college campuses, especially the large college campuses. So college campuses in cities, places where you can easily break things, destroy things, and you don't know where food comes from. There's a lot going on with that, but
Yeah.
that's just where I am.
Yeah.
So we talked about all that. Talk about knowing community from and government's going to government. So speaking of
Yeah.
government's going to government, has there been any updates about our recent cases when it came to Breonna Taylor, Rayshard Brooks, all the other things that we were talking about since last week?
Well, with Miss Taylor, we're going on. I believe this is the 104th day without any charges being filed by the Kentucky Attorney General. Um, they have had a firing of one of the officers, the sergeant involved in that warrant execution. He was fired. I believe it was about 3 days or so ago now. The attorney general has yet to say anything about indictments, anything of that nature. I don't know if you're familiar with Sean King, but he puts a lot of updates out about what's going on. And the last thing I saw, they were actually boarding up the courthouse at one point in time because they believed that an announcement was coming at that time, but that was a few days ago. But it just lends to go to show it probably wasn't going to be a good announcement, and they were bracing themselves for what is going to be, some upheaval or some uproar.
Mm.
Yeah. So some people call him Talcum X, all that stuff, but he does put out some good info
Well, I mean,
when it
I mean,
comes
Sean
to it.
King's the reason why I learned about Daniel Shavers. I didn't even
Yeah.
know. I didn't even know about that because Sean King
Yeah.
actually gave me a balanced view of some things. But
Yeah.
so what
So
Rayshard Brooks, I heard that the situation with the Wendy's burning down
so
was his
that that
girlfriend,
that yeah, that was
and
actually
she's white,
yes.
and his wife is black.
Uh, from my
It has nothing to
understanding,
do with him. It has nothing to do with him getting shot. But
yeah.
it's just weird how some of
From
these. It's
I
just
mean, from
weird.
from my understanding, his marital situation is something that's been talked about. They were in the process of separating and doing that
Okay.
whole thing.
Okay.
Um, and that's because everybody's like, well, where'd the white girlfriend come from? Where'd the girlfriend come from? Period. Because the main thing you see on TV is the wife. That's
Hmm.
what you do see, the wife and his daughter. To see the the girlfriend doing what she's doing to the Wendy's, you know, it's just like, man,
I gotta give the girlfriend credit. She went to the place where it happened and said, you know what, I'm riding or
yeah,
die for my boy.
she's tired, right?
I'm riding or
Right?
die for my boy.
Act of passion.
You
That's
know,
that's
George.
that's
You know,
that's what I call it.
George Floyd's late girlfriend was white too. What is going on here?
Yeah.
Why do we keep running into
Ah,
this?
I
Is
think that
this
might be another episode. That might be
man?
another episode. But
It's gonna
Mr.
have to be.
Brooks, in his case, the officers have been fired. To my understanding, they've sought legal counsel. One has been charged with murder. The other one with aggravated assault. And the reason being for the additional charge for the other officer who didn't fire is because of what he did afterwards. In basically, what appears that he's kind of like kicking Rayshard Brooks.
Hmm.
He's kind of, I don't know if he's like trying to push him over, but he's definitely seen on camera kicking the man. And
Okay,
it's and
so he was actually kicking him
yeah,
because some people were trying to debate that he was kicking him or not, or that he was just trying to turn him over. I
right,
guess safely, quote unquote,
right,
safely, so that he can administer CPR if he was actually going to try it. But I
right.
didn't know, so I didn't want to comment on it because I didn't actually know the facts.
Now the officer who fired, he also fired recklessly. There were multiple rounds that were traced back to his firearm that hit
Mm,
some of the pedestrians that were in that drive-through.
mm.
They hit their vehicles. So there's that aspect of that. That's what lended to him being fired first.
That's gonna give a civil suit. That's gonna be a civil suit too.
Right. Potential loss of innocent life. Whether you want to group Mr. Brooks into that category or not,
Hmm.
that's how that's being viewed, and that's why he was ultimately fired, and the other one was just put on administrative leave in the beginning.
Okay.
But the DA has brought charges against them and plans to have I don't know if it's going to be a grand jury trial or if it's going to be by judge. That's has yet to be said.
Mm.
But that
Well,
is what's going on.
grand jury trial may have may you better make sure you have the right dynamics in there. Otherwise, it'll be a George Zimmerman all over again.
Exactly, and then
You
you've got
know.
to with all this stuff being highlighted, it on in the news, it's really, it almost makes the uphill battle to get these guys convicted even harder. And here's why I say that, because now they've got to look for an impartial jury that's next to impossible to find.
Yeah.
Okay, unless it comes down to belief in law enforcement or standing in the citizenry about social injustice.
Yes.
That's where the pendulum is gonna swing. Do you feel like officers are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you think that that's just the cost of doing business, or do you feel like they could do business better and want to see accountability just in general. And it's going to be hard for a DA to really say, "Oh, I've got an impartial jury, whether they're white, black, or brown, or yellow."
Hmm.
That's where the uphill battle starts.
Probably would be better. It probably would be better, at least from a visual standpoint. But nah, if they don't do grand jury and they do just judge, it may feed into the narrative of, okay, the Blue Wall of Silence is going to protect them again because
Right.
they're gonna
Because it's the
say,
system. They
yeah,
look
they're
at the
going to the
judge
system.
as a part of the system
Yep.
that is going to lend to wanting justice, or wanting some sense of favoritism. It's just a tragic thing. But at least there is movement in Mr. Brooks's case. Now they did pass legislation in Kentucky for Breonna Taylor.
Yes.
Breonna, they call it Breonna's Law, and it highlights that no knock warrants will be conducted in the state ever again.
Okay.
And now that is a good step forward,
It's a good
but
step
it's
forward, but
it's
the
definitely not
situation for her,
appeasing.
yeah, her just like now for me, this is what I actually wanted. I actually want legislation and law. I think we shared a
Right.
picture. I shared a picture with you, or you shared it with me. That Colorado ain't waiting for the Supreme Court to figure things out. They already cut qualified immunity for police officers.
Yes. Now that it's still going to get challenged, as if that can be, if it's constitutional or not. But
Oh
I
my
think
gosh,
I
god
think
daggone unions.
it's because that there's already established law by the Supreme Court, and this is where we break down federal law versus state law.
Uh
Okay, and
huh.
who can legislate what, and what guys you're set under. So there's still going to be a lot of injunctions to it, but they've at least executive order. The governor did that to say that at state level they're not giving officers any more. Um, sorry about that. I guess my phone picked me up. Um, but they're not giving any of that immunity to officers. You're going to get the same treatment as any other private citizen in the state of Colorado if it's seen that you've committed an act of homicide or murder. Uh, and that's I personally feel that it's appropriate.
Yes, that is appropriate.
It's long been standing that officers kind of have this veil over them, and the biggest veil is that of qualified immunity.
Yes.
Now, I wasn't privy to it even as an officer, and I'll say that I didn't. I just thought that as long as I did what I was supposed to do,
Hmm.
I followed my training. I had no idea about qualified immunity to the level of the Supreme Court. I had no idea. Even in constitutional law, when we're taught that, we were only taught Commonwealth of Virginia's law, and did some case study in that thing, but we didn't go as high as federal to understand what our protections were.
Hmm.
So, but for what it is, and for what it allows, the type of vacuum that it allows for people to basically get away with murder, I think it needs to go.
It does
Yeah,
need
I
to
think.
go, and then there should be no. That's one of those things where we're talking about, like you said, about federal versus state law. This is
Hmm.
a piece of federal legislation, a federal mandate that shouldn't even exist because who are you as the federal body of government to tell me how I'm supposed to treat the police that I have locally? The law enforcement officers that I have locally should be under my jurisdiction and should be under my jurisdiction only. They should not have to answer to the federal government as far as any kind of major protections. We do that for our own stakes because we're supplying our law enforcement. I can understand if your qualified immunity was specifically made for the federal military, who, let's say they have to do a domestic exercise because um, you got a group of people who are trying to start their own militia, illegal or not illegally, but they're, like a Chaz, like Chaz, for example.
Yeah,
Like I
out in
can understand,
Seattle. Yeah.
I can understand if you said, okay, well, we got to have National Guard and our military will qualify immunity because there may be a situation like Chaz that pop up, but we don't have to shut it down, and we don't want to necessarily expose our officers to getting challenged that they had to go in and pretty much bomb a group of people that were doing such and such and so and so, and they're gonna get blamed and say, well, they were being racist or whatever have you because they did. It's like, no, this was a matter of national security. I understand it for that, but for Virginia, for Colorado, for California, they should be in charge of their own law enforcement. National Guard, military, I understand qualified immunity only being applicable to them, which I still wouldn't like anyway. But at no point in time should someone who's serving their citizenry directly be so strongly protected by both unions and federal law that they can't be held accountable for their crappy daggone behavior, which is beyond crap. And that's my favorite word to use because I don't like to cuss up that much. But when I say crap, I think you know what I mean.
Right, right.
Well, man, we talked for a long time, but that's episode 2. Let's give us a clap. Let's give us a
yeah, yeah.
episode 2. All right,
Awesome.
we'll see y'all next time. We're in the middle. So
thank y'all for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Make sure you hit us up on social media. In the middle PC, in the middle PC1 on Twitter, and on Facebook, in the middle podcast. You can hit us up on there. Any type of suggestions you have, any feedback, we're open to it. Love to hear it from you. And thanks for listening.
Yep. And those of you that's been checking us out on YouTube, that wanted to listen to the YouTube video, be ready. We're going to try to make it a regular thing where the premiere of the video, after we make sure the podcast and everything is in order, is live at the latest Sunday. At the latest on Sunday. We want to make sure that we have those things out to you on all social media platforms and everything where you consume your media. So thanks again for listening to In the Middle Podcast. I'm Micah.
And I'm Ron.
And we are out.